are so many things you can do to assist yourself on the road to financial success. From creating and sticking to a consistent budget, to paying off your debts, and choosing the right investing and withdrawal strategies. However, what if I told you that when it comes to achieving financial success, when you really boil it down, there's only one thing that you actually need to do? Would you believe me? Probably not, and that's totally understandable. Finance is often presented as this monolith of complexity requiring months or even years of study to properly understand. So having one simple thing be enough to virtually guarantee yourself financial success is pretty hard to believe. But it's true, and today we discuss what that thing is and why it's so effective. But before we get going, be sure to like this video if you haven't already, as it really does help out the channel a lot, and subscribe with notifications on for more money-related videos like this one every single week. And if you want to further support this channel, you can check out some of the links I've left in the description below, which includes a link to my Patreon page. This is the best way to show your support for this channel, and in addition to that, you can also get early access to new videos and exclusive content such as spreadsheets based off the ideas we discuss in these videos. Spreadsheets will allow you to play with your own numbers and see how big of a difference some of the ideas we discuss can make for your own personal financial situation. Okay, so no more beating around the bush. What is the one thing you need to do that will virtually guarantee yourself financial success if you do it well enough? You need to save money. Yeah, I know, pretty boring. And for those that were hoping for something a little more illuminating, probably pretty disappointing too. But seriously, it's true, and it can be so effective. If we define financial success as the ability to accumulate enough wealth to reach your goals within the time frame that you want to achieve them, then saving money is far and away the most realistically attainable and probably impactful thing you can do to achieve that success. And it may not take as much as you might think at first. For those who don't know, a safe savings rate is exactly what it sounds like. It's the amount of money you would need to save each month or each year to reach your goals based on a historic worst-case scenario of investing returns and the time frame you want to reach your goals in. We can calculate a safe savings rate much like we would any other simple algebra equation. We already know what our savings goal is and how quickly we want to accumulate that money since we decide those things for ourselves, but we can also get a pretty good idea of what a worst-case scenario might be for our investment returns over that kind of a time span by studying the history of the types of investments we're thinking about investing our money in. Let's go over how this works with an example. Let's say that John and Jane were saving up for a down payment on a home. They want to buy a place in no more than 3 years and want to have put away at least $50,000 for the down payment, adjusted for inflation since obviously housing prices would change over that time. They currently take home about $60,000 a year and invest all of that money into a simple total stock market index fund, which, probably isn't the best idea over such a short time frame since stocks can be quite volatile over the short term, but for the sake of this example, we'll go with it. How much would they need to have saved in order to reach their goal? Well, that depends on the returns that they earn on their investments. Had they started investing at the bottom of the market following the financial crisis of 2008, which, as we know now, would have been a pretty darn good time to invest, their returns would have been quite strong, and as a result, they wouldn't have had to save quite as much money out of their own pockets to reach their goal in the 3 years that they want to reach it in. Based on the data I have, assuming they began investing in 2009, they would have needed to put away around $14,400 a year, or roughly 24% of their income, to successfully reach their goal in the time frame they set. However, had they been investing in the same funds back in 2000, just before the market crash following the dot-com bubble, they'd have needed to save a bit more, since their returns would have struggled a bit more in those years. In this case, they'd have needed to put away around $24,600 a year, or about 41% of their income, to reach their goal in that same 3-year time span. Unfortunately for John and Jane, we know that this isn't the worst-case scenario for a stock market investor throughout history. No, for someone investing the entirety of their money into the stock market, it's hard to get much worse than the Great Depression of the early 1930s. So, how much would John and Jane have had to save if they wanted to guarantee that they'd reach their goal, even if the markets were to crater like they did during the Great Depression? As it turns out, the answer is roughly $31,800 a year, or 53% of their income. Based on history, a stock market investor who had nothing put away to start with, but wanted to have at least an inflation-adjusted $50,000 put away within 3 years, could have virtually guaranteed success had they saved a little over half their income during those years. That is their safe savings rate. Now granted, in most cases, John and Jane wouldn't have had to put away nearly that much to reach their goals. This is a bit of an extreme example, just to illustrate the idea behind how the safe savings rate works. But it is worth pointing out that we're having John and Jane try to save up nearly an entire year's worth of income in just a few short years. That's going to take a lot of focused effort to achieve almost no matter what their investments do, since there's just not that much time for the money to compound and grow. Heck, if we had extended their timeline by 1 year, so they give themselves 4 years to save up for the down payment instead of 3, their safe savings rate would have fallen all the way to 35%, which is still an impressive amount of money to save, don't get me wrong, but it's at least much more manageable than saving over half of their income would be. And as I hinted at earlier, especially when it comes to shorter-term investing goals, they could have, and probably should have, put their money into a traditionally less volatile investment like bonds or even a savings account. Doing this would have lowered their safe savings rate. In the case of investing in bonds, it would have gone down to around 36% of their income with a 3-year timeline, and about 28% of their income with a 4-year timeline. Again, still an impressive level of savings, but a bit more achievable for most of us than the alternative. Anyway, I think you get the idea. That's how the safe savings rate works. You figure out how much someone would have needed to save based on a worst-case scenario of their investment's performance throughout history and their chosen time horizon. But you don't have to stop there. Just as with most financial ideas, you can take this one a little further as you personalize it to your own specific situation. For instance, what if you're someone who buys the dip? It's long been understood that pouring some extra money into the markets when they've recently fallen in value is a great way to get more bang for your investing buck, since you're essentially buying shares when they're on sale. And when the markets eventually bounce back and recover, which so far they always have, you'll see your net worth skyrocket, even more than you would have otherwise. So how much of a difference could investing more when the markets are down make to your safe savings rate? Well, let's see. Let's say that John and Jane were looking at saving for retirement, since that's a longer-term goal than building up a down payment fund is, so we'll be able to get a better idea of how much of a difference buying the dip actually makes in this regard over time. We'll still have them earning $60,000 a year, and we'll assume that they invest everything into the stock market. Their goal is to accumulate an inflation-adjusted nest egg of $1 million, since, according to the 4% rule, that'll allow them to retire on a $40,000 a year income, plus any income they may be generating outside of their nest egg, such as from Social Security, passive income from businesses, or part-time jobs, hobbies, or side hustles. They want to retire in 40 years or less. How much would they have needed to save in order to virtually guarantee financial success in this area? As it turns out, they would have needed to save roughly $9,600 a year, or 16% of their income, assuming that they didn't adjust their savings when the markets were down. However, if they did adjust their savings when the markets were down, they wouldn't have needed to put away quite as much. Here's a chart showing how the safe savings rate changes for this hypothetical based on the additional amount of money John and Jane invested in the years following market downturns. As you can see, by increasing our investments when the markets are on sale, and until they recover, we can cut the safe savings rate we need to hit during more normal market environments by about 6%. Now, granted, that's not as huge of a difference as it could have been since our safe savings rate was fairly reasonable to begin with, so there wasn't a whole heck of a lot of room to lower it, and we're not diversifying our investments beyond stocks, but it does still give you an idea of how buying the market when it's on sale can give you a little more wiggle room during normal times. If you really wanted to supercharge your financial progress, you could combine the two ideas by simply maintaining your safe savings rate during normal times and investing extra when the markets are on sale. By doing this, you can seriously cut down the time it takes you to reach your financial goals. For instance, here's how long it would have taken John and Jane, on average, to reach their $1 million retirement savings goal, assuming they maintain their 16% safe savings rate during normal market conditions and tighten their financial belts during downturns. As you can see, John and Jane could save anywhere from a couple to a solid handful of years, depending on how much extra money they save during market downturns, by simply maintaining their regular savings rate during the normal times. But anyway, that's how you can virtually guarantee yourself financial success in the future. Even if your investments perform poorly, a sufficiently strong savings rate can get you through darn near any storm. As far as increasing your savings rate goes, I recommend following the Pareto principle. This is basically the idea that the majority of your results are going to come from a minority of your efforts. In the realm of budgeting, this usually comes down to finding ways to optimize, or in some cases eliminate, your most expensive line items. Every little bit helps when it comes to saving money, of course, but there's often as much, if not more, potential room for saving money on things like your housing or transportation situations, or debts if you have them, than there is on smaller line items like toiletries or other household supplies. So it's often a good idea to focus on those areas of the budget first, and then turn your attention to optimizing those smaller line items once you got some positive momentum going. But again, to each their own. So I know this was a shorter video than usual, but I came across the idea of the safe savings rate and thought it would serve as a useful refocusing mechanism. Because, like I said at the beginning of the video, we tend to overcomplicate personal finance sometimes.